interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. This is part 3 of the times of the Gentiles, the fulfillment of prophecy. And we are reading from the book called The Synagogue of Satan. If you've been following this journey, you've been finding out about some things that they told you in history lessons and stuff, but you've been finding out that there's more to the story. And we find out how wow these people is, man. This family and the people associated with this family. It's not all the people, family. It's not all the people that is of this nationality. I mean, it's probably a good percentage, but we can't have the mindset like, oh, they all like that. I mean, remember, Yah loves those that love him. You know what I'm saying? So if there was somebody of this nationality that would humble themselves under the children of Israel, the true children, and take hold of the walk that the Messiah offered and fought and kept the laws, statutes, and commandments, didn't see themselves better than the children of Israel, even though the children of Israel is the tail right now when they're supposed to be the head. It will be a humbling experience for them. You know what I'm saying? A very humbling experience for them because they are given the position to be the head right now because it's their time. So they got to come down levels because they're high. They got to come down to levels to where the lowly people is. They have to humble themselves up under the children of Israel, up under the Messiah, under Yah. And there's an opportunity for them. I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there. So let's keep that in mind. But very, 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 very powerful history lesson here. So we see that there's wars. We got what? We got the French Revolution War, the War of 1812, the Opium War, the Boer Wars, and the Civil War, all according to the information provided in this book. All these wars, the Rothschilds had something to do with. They started, stirred, pursued an agenda through, and we even seen where the mother of these people actually came out and said that if my sons did not want wars, there would be none. So quick little recap. I just want to show you these wars before we get started. I want to show you these wars before we get started, and we'll get right into this. All right, so the French Revolution, that's first war, right? We know that this war started because, all right, so Adam Weishaupt, right? After forming the Illuminati, he gave information, right? He gave information and put it in a book, remember? And the courier who was going to take the book to who needed to see it, right? His associates, because the book pertained the detailed plan for starting the French Revolution. And remember, the courier got struck by lightning. I got it up here if you want to read it. We already read it in the previous lesson. But remember, the courier got struck by lightning, and the Bavarian government realizes this detailed plan. And they go so far as to raid the Masonic lodges, and they go so far as to even warn people. They outlawed the Illuminati. That was very interesting. They outlawed the Illuminati, and they warned the head of churches and state, and nobody heeded the warning. Nobody heeded the warning. So in 1789, due to the European ignorance of the Bavarian government's warning, the Illuminati's plan for a French Revolution succeeds from this year to its completion in 1793. The revolution is the central bankers' dream, as it established a new constitution and passes laws that both forbid Roman Church from levying taxes and also removes church exemption from taxation. Now, the French Revolution, family, the Rothschilds got the British Army to go against Napoleon. So you got Britain fighting Napoleon's army, and you got the agenda that's going to be passed through this. And they said it's because they could take over the church, right? They could take money from the church. We're going to see that they're going to end up owning the churches. We already seen that. We're going to go over that again, but that's in part 2. We also see that it gives them an opportunity to make money off the war by funding both sides, and the victor has to pay. And what ended up happening in this particular war, remember they set up the couriers, speedy couriers with secret routes that was allowed to pass through blockades, just like the movie Trading Places, where they were able to get the information firsthand. And being though they always had they was always known for being one step ahead in the stocks, that they got people to think that Britain actually lost the war. So they started selling. Well, they got people to think Britain lost the war by selling the stocks. So people like, okay, if they're selling, that means Britain lost. And then they turned around and started buying the stocks, but it was too late for everybody, and they made crazy profit out of it. I forget the exact dollar amount, but man. So you see the benefits through the war. This family got even richer through this war. We also see that during this war, right? Napoleon, right? Let me go to that real fast. Because Napoleon actually threatens a very wealthy man. And a wealthy man runs. And he is, I guess, fearing for his life. And he gives a Rothschild, here we go right here, $3 million for safekeeping. Prince William VI of Hesse-Hanna. Now, encyclopedia of the J.S. Encyclopedia, I believe it was, actually says that this money he never got back. He never got back. And this money was used to fund both sides of the war and make money and all that. So, that's that. So you see that what they was able to benefit in that war, they were able to benefit that much in that war, a war that they started. Now, we all know about the French Revolution. We heard about it in school, but you never heard this side of it. People think about it. Wars happen, but we really don't know why they happen. We get we get what they tell us happened, and we eat it up. We eat it up. We be like, oh, that's what happened. Okay, all right, boom. All right. You see how much they lied to us before. And we know that these things actually happen. These wars actually happen. This war happened. So let's go to the next war. Just quick little recap. Just showing you, because I'm showing you that their hand was involved in these wars. And as we read more, we're going to see how many wars they are involved in. And they started. Because remember, the mom said what she said. The mom said what she said. The next war that happened was the war, what they call the War of 1812. I mean, this is a war that Americans are so proud of. You know, look, it's on the license plate. Maryland license plate, the War of 1812. Proud of this war. That is, you know what I'm saying? And it's a war that a lot of people don't know how it started, the true meaning of how it started, but we see it in this book, you know? This was a war that was fought because let's real fast recap. All right, so the War of 1812, right? So remember, the Rothschilds set up a central bank, okay? The charter for the central bank in 1811, right, runs out. Congress realizes, and I'm sure the American public also was realizing how bad this bank was. It was the first bank of the United States, right? So they let the charter run out and they vote against its renewal. This leads the Rothschilds. Look at the statement. Who said it? Nathan Mayer Rothschild. It's not amused. And he states, this is what he says. He says, either the application for renewal of the charter is granted or the United States will find itself involved in the most disastrous war. You see that? So that's their hand. They're telling you they're doing it, right? They're telling you they're doing it. All right. It goes on to read. It says, however, the United States stands firm and the charter is not renewed, which causes Nathan Mayer Rothschild to issue another threat, which he states, teach those impudent Americans a lesson, bring them back to colonial status, right? Now, this is the year 1812 when the war is kicked off. The Rothschild give money and orders, so they fund Britain to declare a war against the United States. You see what I'm saying? Y'all know the whole thing, the red coats are coming, the red coats are coming. And we heard stories about. That's this war. The red coats are coming. I believe it was the guy, I forget the name, the guy that they taught us in social studies. Back, I learned this in, elementary, I think. I can't remember. But anyway, he was famous. He was the one who go warn the troops. The red coats are coming. The red coats are coming. Well, we see how the war started and what happened in it. So in this war, remember, there's already one war taking place. Britain is being used to fight against Napoleon in the French Revolution. So Britain is unable to unleash a full assault against America. He's already fighting a war with Napoleon, so he's dividing his troops. You see what I'm saying? So being though he's dividing his troops, America ends up winning the fight in 1814. This is why I believe they honor this. This is why it's on license plates and stuff like that. It's because a war was fought on American soil against a foreign enemy and America won. America's undefeated in wars. Even today, still undefeated. Now, what's interesting is that the war actually took place because America did not want a central bank. The only reason the Rothschilds sent British to go fight America is because they did away with the central bank. But in the year 1816, American Congress passed a bill permitting another bank. So the Rothschild end up winning. They win. They lost the war. Britain lost the war, right? Many people died, on both sides. But the Rothschilds don't care. They got what they want. So that's why I'm stuck on the fact that people are honoring this war. Like, oh yeah, we won, we won, we won. Well, if you go into the origins and the reason why that war was fought, did you really win, America? But we're going to see that central bank is going to get kicked out again. We already seen that. Like I said, if you haven't checked out part 1, part 2, please go back and check it out. But this is just a recap for those who's been following along, because I just want to keep it in your mind, these wars. I just want to keep these wars in your mind, because that all goes back to the reason, one of the reasons why we are reading this. Next war we have is the Boer War. I wonder if that's how you pronounce it. B-O-R. B-E-O-R. The Boer War. Now, this was a war. No, I'm sorry. Before the Boer War, we have the Opium War. Yeah, the Opium War. Now, this war, think about it, it's called the Opium War, family. But this war was fought because the Rothschild drug dealer, David Sassoon, was flooding China with what this guy here, trafficking 18,956 chests of opium. I wonder how many pounds that is. Flooding China with this drug to the point where it becomes an endemic. Later increases it to over 30,000 chests of opium, right? Like, he had China hooked on this drug, and the money, the profits went to himself, his family, to the Rothschilds, and to the British royal family. They were all in cahoots for this. So what does China do? Well, in 1839, the Chinese, their emperor, orders the trade to be stopped, seizing over 2,000 chests of opium, throws it into the water, right? Throws it into the water. So what happens? Well, what happens is Mr. Sassoon runs and tells the Rothschild sets up the British army to go invade China and take them to war. Now, China can't offer much of assault against its attackers because most of its citizens is hooked on this drug. So China loses. What end up happening? They pass what is it called? It's called the Treaty of Nanking, where these are the rules. Full legalization of the opium trade in China. So you know how today they legalize marijuana, right? So everybody can smoke marijuana if they want to, right? Cops can't mess with you. Now if you're driving, you get a ticket and stuff like that. DUI, they treat it like a DUI. But you're allowed to go purchase it. In fact, they have places where you can go purchase it from. Well, imagine heroin, opium being legalized. Man. So they forced China's hand to legalize opium. The second was a compensation to David Sassoon of the 2 million pounds of opium. So we got a number right there. 2 million pounds, family, dumped into the river. They had to pay that off. China had to pay that off. China's government had to pay that off. Wow. And the third was territorial sovereignty for the British Crown over several designated offshore islands. So they got something else out of the deal. So this war led into another agenda that they probably had and wanted So it was like, all right, we're gonna make sure David Sassoon get paid off. We're gonna make sure that this never happens again. So it's gonna be legal there. So you can just go ahead and sell them what you want to sell them, and then as a bonus, we're gonna give territorial sovereignty to the British Crown over several designated offshore islands. And as you can see, this war actually took place. It's actually called the Opium War. It's actually called the Opium War. Wikipedia says, oh, these are images. These are images. That's all this is. But you see it took place. Wikipedia speaks on it. Back out once. It's in, here's the Britannica form of the encyclopedia. Let's click on, let's visit that real fast. See? Britannica says that the Opium Wars were two armed conflicts in China in the mid-19th century between forces of Western countries and of the Qing dynasty. The first war, 1839-42, was fought between China and Britain. That's the one we're talking about right here. They had another war. I didn't even know about that. We didn't get to that one. But I'm just showing you, like, yo, this stuff is real, man. Then we have the Civil War. They have reenactments for this and stuff like that. There's people that, they go out and reenact what happened. We got a spin on what they gave us, but we see different information in this book. We see why it started. Again, the Rothschilds. So we see that, according to this book, that the Rothschilds, their ships were being used to transport the cotton from America to overseas. The South was wealthy because of the cotton. And the minds of the Rothschild, remember, they still want the central bank in America. So they use this as a way of moving in on America by starting a war, divide and conquer. So they send agents over to the South to stir up a breakaway. So the United States was, all states were united. They were one. But then the South started breaking away because of the Rothschild agents, and they became the Confederate state. They even had their own president and everything. What was their president name? But they had their own president and everything. There it is. Jefferson Davis. This was their president. He was considered the former president of the Confederate States of America. So the Rothschild plan was working. And they got the South stirred up. The South started, I would say, like guerrilla war tactics. Started attacking the northern states. And then the war started. Now we see in here that the war, we went in it in detail in the previous lesson. But I'm just gonna sum it up here. There were things that took place. The North was, or the Union was, bringing tariffs, basically making it hard for the South to make money through trade. That pushed the South to want to go to war. So Abraham Lincoln, who was inaugurated, because remember, the previous president did nothing about it. So when Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated, he took them to war. He went to war with them. Now, there was a thing on the money situation. He didn't have the money to fund it. And what was interesting, what we learned too, is that the Rothschilds had sent the British Army, sent the British Army in the South, which violated an agreement that said that no foreign country can come and interfere with anything that has to do with America and its borders. This thing was called the Monroe Doctrine. So that was a violation. But the Rothschilds put the British soldiers around Mexico to return them to a colonial rule. And America agreed. Well, turn them to colonial rule. But if they would have honored this Monroe Doctrine, America was agreeing to stay neutral in foreign affairs. They violated that. They also sent British soldiers to Canada, positioning them along the northern border. So Abraham Lincoln had soldiers beneath him, the South. He had soldiers in Mexico, or the borders of Mexico, and now he has soldiers to the north of him. And he has no money to fund the war, so we see that he created something called the greenback. He made it money. He didn't have to go through the Rothschilds or to any of their banks to get money to fund the war and all of that. But what was interesting about this war also was the fact that the Abraham Lincoln links up with the Tsar. Let's get there. He links up with the Tsar of Russia because the Tsar has a problem with the Rothschild as well. So in 1863, he links up with the Tsar of Russia, and Russia basically tells all countries around its area that if they get involved in this war, they're going to treat it as an act of war and they're going to take that country to war. Now, Russia was a big place, a big army. So Russia sends its troops to, where did he put them? He put them, it was interesting. He put some of his fleet in San Francisco, so that's the West Coast, and some of his fleet in the port of New York. That's the East Coast. Now think about this, family. You on the South, you got the South, right? But then you also have the South, you got the Confederate, right? But then you also have British troops around the Mexico area. On the North, around Canada, you have British troops. So Abraham Lincoln has troops to the north and to the south of him. Okay. But on the East Coast, you have Russian troops, and on the West Coast, you have Russian troops. So it's like all this is taking place, and you never hear about this in the history books. So this war is fought not to free the slaves. The slaves end up being free because pretty much Abraham Lincoln wanted to hurt the South. The South had free labor, right? Plus, Abraham Lincoln can get more troops because you free these slaves and then you tell them, come fight for your country. Come fight for the North. So in end result, the slaves were free. And Abraham Lincoln, just quick little recap. Hold on. Because we're going to go right to what he said. Now, this is what Abraham Lincoln had to say with slavery. Check this out. I have no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it now exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. My paramount objective is to save the Union And it is not either to save or destroy slavery. If I could have saved the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. All right. So this wasn't about freeing slavery. This war was about the Rothschilds trying to start something so they can divide and conquer. The North beefing with the South. The North hurting the South. The South reacting, responding. All right. Okay. The next war we got is the Boers War. All right, now this war was because the Rothschilds and the powers to be discovered that there was a vastly increasing amount of wealth in gold and diamonds within South Africa. They couldn't get the South Africans to get out of the way. The South Africans didn't want to leave their land. They didn't want to give up their wealth. So what does the Rothschilds do best? They called on the British soldiers. 400,000 British soldiers came and fought against the Boers. The Boers farmers only had 30,000 with rifles. It's a slaughter, family. Now, what's interesting about this one is, I'm going to read it real fast. It says, it is during this so-called war that the concentration camp is invented. Now, this is in the year 1899. This is before Hitler and the concentration camps that he had. But through Rothschild's British soldiers, fair to call them that, the concentration camps was developed. So it says that when the British rounded up anyone sympathetic to the Boers, so not just they didn't just put the soldiers they were fighting against, the Boer soldiers, in these concentration camps, but anybody who was sympathetic towards the Boers. You see that? So women, children were placed in unsanitary, fever-ridden camps. And then the Rothschild goes on to win the war and receive the bounty, which is, or the booty or whatever, the wealth, gold and diamonds. And this war was interesting because it's a concentration camp mentioned and used, and the Rothschilds were Jays. And their big story is, especially today for the Jays, is the fact that they had to endure concentration camps. So we see who invented it. All right. So what I'm gonna do is, family, that's the 4 wars. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 5. Those are the 5 wars that we covered already. And in those 5 wars, the French Revolution, right? The War 1812, right? The Opium War, the Civil War, the Boers War. Each of those wars impacted the world. It was stirred up, and benefited the Rothschilds. So I was going to start the reading for the next part 3. But we're just going to call this just a recap. So this is part 3, but this is the recap. So there will be, I imagine I have to change the title on it. But anyway, this is just a recap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this recording, and I'm going to go ahead and start part 3. So this is just a recap. I'll title it recap, even though when you first click on it, it's going to say the title of it is part 3, but this is just a recap of the wars. All right. All right, family. Hope this was a blessing to you. And we're going to continue. Shalom. God bless.